Jamie from Country Diggers here. Excuse my voice. I'm a little stuffy, having trouble with my sinuses. But today we're going to do a little history on Boudica, the warrior queen, from the Iceni tribe, the Celtic Icenia tribe in Britain. She's one of my all-time Celtic heroines. If we had more like her, we wouldn't be putting up with this stuff we have today. That's for sure. So stay tuned for Boudica. This is an article from The Collector by Robert C.L. Holmes. He's professor of ancient and medieval history and archaeology. Boudica, or Boudica, or Boudica. She is beauty. She is grace. She will put an axe into your face. Boudica. Born maybe around 30 AD, Roman Britain. Died around 60 or 61 AD, Britannia. Roman rule of the newly conquered provinces of Britannia was brutal, harsh, and exploitative. Led by Boudica, the warrior queen of the Iceni. The Britons violently revolted against their oppressors. Rome began its slow, piecemeal conquest of Britannia in 43 AD, subduing the various tribes one by one. Some tribes sought to preserve their independence by allying themselves with Rome. Prestigius was one of 11 kings who surrendered to the Roman Emperor Claudius following the initial Roman conquest in 43 AD. As such, he was officially installed as king of the Iceni, ally of Rome. His long reign was remembered as being particularly prosperous. When Prestigius died, he named the Roman Emperor Nero as his co-heir. Wow. Along with his two daughters. While Prestigius had hoped that this would ensure the safety of his kingdom and his family, it instead set the stage for Boudica's massive revolt. Boudica's husband, Prestigius, named the Roman Emperor Nero as co-heir with his two daughters in his will. It was hoped that this act of deference would protect his lands and his family. However, the will was ignored, and local Roman officials moved to seize Prestigius's land and property. Earlier loans that had been made to the leading men of Britannia were called in all at once by Decius Castus, procurator of the province, who demanded repayment in full. Roman centurions broke into Prestigius's home, ostensibly in search of money. In the process, they scourged Prestigius's wife, Boudica, and raped his two daughters. The sources agree that Boudica was herself a woman of royal descent. She was said to have tall stature with long tawny hair that hung below her waist. Her voice was strong and harsh, which complemented her piercing stare. As befitted a woman of her stature in Britannia, she wore a large golden necklace, possibly a torque, and a colorful tunic fastened by a brooch. It was the harsh treatment that she and her daughters received at the hands of the Romans, which was the immediate cause of this powerful woman's revolt. Following the Roman assault on Boudica and her daughters, the Iceni began to conspire with their neighboring tribes, such as the Travantes and others, Boudica was soon chosen to lead the revolt. Her oratory skills, vocal skills, I guess, were said to be quite impressive. Not willing to leave anything to chance, Boudica also performed acts of deviation, witchcraft, to raise the morale of the army and hopefully guarantee victory. According to one story, she released a hare, which is a rabbit, from within the folds of her dress, and intercepted the direction it ran as the path laid out for the army by Anstrade. I'm sorry, I'm not getting these words right, but it's a British goddess of victory. The timing of the revolt was well planned. Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, the Roman governor of Britain, was on the far side of the island, leading a military campaign. British rebels had taken refuge on the island of Mona, modern-day Anglesey in North Wales. Stronghold of the Druids. It was the stronghold of the Druids. At the time of Boudica's revolt, Suetonius and most of the Roman forces in Britain were occupied with this campaign. It would therefore take them a considerable amount of time to finish up their campaign and march back across the island. In the meantime, Boudica's revolt would be able to spread and destroy any isolated Roman forces left behind in a piecemeal fashion. The first target of Boudica's army was the city of Camaldonian, modern-day Colchester. This city was formerly the capital of the Treventes. However, the Romans had seized most of the land and transformed the city into a colonia. The colonia is where we get colony. So thank the Romans for that, okay? Not the Americans. Thank the Romans. And not the British either. The Romans invented the colony. Okay. A settlement established to reward Roman veterans for their service. Not only had the Roman veterans and other settlers mistreated the local Britons, but they also forced them to pay for their construction of a temple to the deceased Emperor Claudius, during whose reign the Romans had invaded Britain. As such, Caledonian had become the focus of British resentment. Boudica's rebellion and approaching army had not gone unnoticed by the inhabitants of Caledonia. They appealed to the procurator Decianus Cantus for reinforcements. But he sent only a mere 200 additional cavalrymen. Boudica's large army smashed its way into the city, methodically destroying everything in its path. A bronze statue of the Emperor Nero, which probably stood in front of the temple to Claudius, was toppled and decapitated. Its head was taken away as a trophy. The last defenders took refuge in the temple to Claudius, where they were able to hold out for another 2 days before the Britons broke in. Modern archaeological excavations have confirmed the widespread destruction of the city. Now, as I understand, I think it's documented that they broke in there, they set fire to that place and burned them people inside. The Britons did. So, I think is what happened. But anyway, during the attack on Caledonium, an attempt was made to relieve the city by Quintus Pedalus Cyrillus, brother-in-law of the future Emperor Vespasian. Cyrillus would later play a leading role in the Year of the Four Emperors and the Batavian Revolt. At the time of Boudica's revolt, he was the commander of the Legio IX, that's 11, I think, Hispania. Boudica's already victorious army intercepted Cyrillus' forces before they could reach the ruins of Caldonia. In the ensuing battle, all the Roman infantrymen were killed, and Cyrillus barely managed to escape back to the Roman camp with what was left of his cavalry. After this defeat, Decius Catus, the man whose actions had started this chain of events, fled to Gaul. In the meantime, Suetonius and his forces had rapidly returned from their victorious campaign against Mona. Boudica's next target appeared to be the city of Londinium. Londinium. Whatever. Modern day London, I think. Founded shortly after the Roman conquest of 43 AD. Londinium was quickly becoming a thriving commercial center. However, Suetonius soon concluded that he lacked the numbers to defend the city and decided to abandon it. When Boudica's army arrived, all those who had not evacuated were slaughtered, and the city was burned to the ground. That might have happened, her burning those people in that building might have happened in Londinium. I'm not sure I get those two. Caldonium and Londinium, one of the two, she burned people in a building. But anyway, modern archaeological excavations have revealed that the destruction extended to the city's suburbs on the southern bank of the Thames River. After the destruction of Londinium, Boudica's army next attacked the municipal of Verlanium, modern-day St. Albans. Here, the archaeological evidence is limited, so the full extent of the destruction is unclear. According to sources, the total number of people killed by Boudica's forces in the three cities was 70,000 to 80,000. The numbers were so high because the Britons had no interest in taking slaves or prisoners and killed all they came across. While Boudica destroyed Londinium and Vercellium, Suetonius was busy gathering as many soldiers as he could find. The Legio IX, 11, I think, Hispania, had been routed by Boudica's forces earlier and was in no condition to fight, while the prefect of the Legio II, Augusta, was either unable or unwilling to converge with Suetonius' army. Nevertheless, Suetonius was able to gather an army which included the Legio XIV. Okay. I have no idea. These Roman numerals. Okay. Legio XIV, that's 10, I is 1, 5, V is 5. So, 26? I don't know. Germania. Legio XIV, Germania, and the Legio XX, I know what that is, 20. Valera Victorix, along with several units of auxiliaries. This meant that Suetonius now had an army of around 10,000, with which to face Boudica's army. Though greatly exaggerated by the sources, and now numbering around 230,000 to 300,000, Boudica clearly had the far larger army. The exact location of the battle between Boudica's Britons and Suetonius's Romans is unknown. The sources describe the battlefield as being inside a defile, and I'll put what defile means in the video, and mention woods behind the Roman position. Traditionally, the battlefield is located along the Roman road known as Watling Street, possibly near the modern High Cross in Leicestershire, at the junction of Watling Street and Fosse Way. Now, I watched a documentary on this not long ago, and I think it was an Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates, and they had found where maybe Boudica was buried or something, or where her ashes were or whatever, or it might have been the battlefield where she died, that they were detecting there, and they pulled up a coin that had Prestigius's picture on it. So, and they pulled up a lot of coins there, so they think it was, they paid tribute to Boudica there. So, I don't know. It's interesting anyway. In any event, when the two armies met, the British lines extended far beyond those of the Romans, who were greatly outnumbered. Boudica addressed her army from her chariot and gave a short speech before ordering an attack. However, in order to attack the Romans, Boudica's army needed to pass through the defile, which forced them together into an unwieldy mass. As the compact mass of Britons advanced, the Romans rained missiles down onto them. While the Romans finally expended all their missiles, they charged forward in a wedge-like formation. The disordered Britons attempted to retreat, but were blocked by a cordon of their own wagons, which had come up behind their army. Enraged by the destruction of so many Roman civilians, Suetonius's soldiers gave no quarter to any British men, women, children, or animals. Boudica did not survive long after the defeat. Though the sources were divided regarding her fate, according to one version, she committed suicide by ingesting poison, while in another version she died of an illness and was given a lavish funeral. Suetonius conducted a brutal, punitive campaign against the tribes who fought alongside Boudica. Fearing that Suetonius's actions would provoke another rebellion, the Emperor Nero replaced him with a more conciliatory governor, Cactus Decianus, whose actions incited the rebellion and who fled to Gaul, was relieved of his position and replaced. Surprisingly, there is no record of what became of Boudica's two daughters. While Boudica's revolt did not last long, it was serious enough to cause the Roman Emperor Nero to consider abandoning Britain. This may have been the goal of the Britons, who were said to have drawn inspiration from a similar revolt in Roman Germany led by Arminius. However, Suetonius's victory was enough to confirm Roman control of the province. The Romans had many years of hard campaigning. A ahead, and they never completely conquered the island of Britain. And if we had more like Boudica, Boudica, man, our two countries would be free of this mess we're in right now. That's for sure. Anyway, ultimately, Boudica's revolt was a failure, yet her story was recorded by the Roman historian. Well, even if her revolt was a failure, it got the Britons to reconsider and leave. It got the Romans to reconsider and leave. And she fought back, too. She fought back. Today, we just, whatever. But anyway, yet her story was recorded by the Roman historian Tacitus, one of the greatest historians of Rome. So while the memory of Boudica faded over time, she was never completely forgotten. In Britain, Boudica continued to feature in medieval chronicles, such as in the 6th century work of Gildas. Boudica was reintroduced by Polydore Virgil and Raphael Holinshed in the mid-16th century. Shortly thereafter, Boudica became associated with Elizabeth I, who in 1588 sought to defend Britain from the Spanish Armada. By the early modern period, there was renewed interest in her life and achievements, and the Victorian era interest in Boudica exploded. She was featured in poems, paintings, statuary, and even had several ships named after her. Suffragists also adopted Boudica as one of their symbols in early 20th century. Man, if we could adopt her now. But today there are permanent Boudica displays in some of the most important museums in England, such as the Museum of London, Colchester Castle Museum, and Verulamium Museum. There is even a 36-mile footpath called Boudica's Way, which passes through the countryside of Norfolk. Alright, hope y'all enjoyed. As I said, she's one of my heroines right there, Boudica. Even though she, man, she was vicious, yes. And, but she protected her family and her country. Alright, hope y'all enjoyed. Bye.